But the first question that we have to ask, we have a market. What is a market? So we have a market for cars, we have a market for shoes, we have a market for houses. What is a market? Definition of the market. So it's a place where buyers and sellers of specific good or service interact in order to facilitate the exchange. We need to exchange. This, remember the exchange value? We talked about use value versus exchange value. So we're going to talk about the exchange value. So how do buyers and sellers interact in the marketplace to facilitate the exchange? You take a product because you want it for something, it has use for you, and sellers will exchange it for you, change it for a price. So at the marketplace, you cannot have supply and demand without having a market. Every product has a market. There are a lot of things get involved in the exchange of goods and services. So it's a system interaction. It's social relations between a group of people. It could be institutions, it could be procedures, it could be a lot of things. So we can exchange a product for a price. So remember, we have buyers that are looking for utility or being happy. We consume a product to satisfy some wants, and sellers exchange a product to make a product. It's profit. So we have, that's what determines the price. But a lot of things goes in the process. The market is not just the shoes. You have to pay. Either you have to use money, you have to use credit cards. A lot of things has to go in the process. You need a place where you can buy goods and services. It could be physical place where you go to the store, for example. It could be virtual place. You can just go online in Amazon and buy things. The very important things that really interesting in the marketplace, how many products you buy. Do you know who made that product? There is no relationship. It's not a personal. It's just you want milk, you go buy milk. You don't think about who made this milk. Do I know the person who made the milk? No, there is no social relationship between the person who produces the product and the buyers in the market. So that's interesting. So a market is a set of buyers and sellers who, through their interactions, determine the price of goods or a set of goods and services. So you cannot exchange goods and services without having a market. You cannot have a market without having buyers. You cannot have a market without somebody selling the product. But the interaction between these two will determine the price of the good. So you can see you can have two different markets. So there is a goods for resources and like capital goods. I mean, factors of production. For example, companies go hire workers, rent spaces, buy machines. That's the resources market. Then we have a product goods market where consumers go and buy stuff. That's how the money circulates in the economy. So the companies need resources that will pay money to households to get either hire somebody to work wages or rent space or borrow money and produce goods and services. So the businesses goes to the resources market, buy or rent resources, then produce goods and bring them to the products market. And right from this side, the businesses bring the goods and services to the market, and then we buy them as individuals, spend the money. So one side measures our revenue. So from the resources market, it's income for individuals, and the other side is spending. You spend the money to buy goods and services, and the money circulates. Every time you spend $1, you buy a good for $1, be sure that $1 is income for somebody else. So when a company makes $1, they have to pay wages, they have to pay rent, they have to borrow money, they have to rent space. So that's revenue for somebody else. So for us, spending is a revenue for our businesses, and also it is an income that comes back to us. So remember, there are two markets, one for resources and one for products. And the market take care of this circulation. That's a very interesting system. One side has supply in it, and one side has demand. You could, in this case, we supply labor. The company demands labor. For this other side here is the opposite. You have a supply in one side. They supply goods and services, and we are consuming. We are demand. So in one side you may be demand, and the other side you may be supplier. So you can see. The families and individuals are supplier of factors of production, but they are demand for goods and services. In the other side, businesses are demanding resources, but also they are supplying goods and services. So the system works like this. That's how the money circulates in the system. I just mentioned, every time you buy the product, you're not just paying a company, you are paying a lot of people who are involved in the production of the goods. Either you pay wages, for example. We're going to talk about in detail in chapter 8. We talk about why this is important. You will see how we can measure the output based on one of the markets. We use this market, or we can use this market to figure out how much we produce, because everything we produce will be bought by somebody else. And every dollar you spend is income for somebody else, okay? So the market structure. So most of the time people jump and talk about the price without talking about understanding the market. First things, before you talk about the price of your good, you have to understand what kind of the market you are involved in, what structure you have. So there is a difference between a milk market versus airplanes market. What does that mean? So you look at milk, how many people are buying the milk, how many people are selling the milk. In airplanes, you look at how many companies are producing airplanes and how many people are buying airplanes. Who are the consumers? So you have to understand first, every product has consumers and has sellers. You have to understand that. And you have to know how many of them, how many companies involved in the market. Is it easy to get in the market versus getting out? So all this determines the market structure. So if you're trying to start the business, first thing you want to do, I'm going to see what market I'm working on, I am trading on. Called the market structure. How we determine the market structure? First, you don't know number of buyers and sellers in that market. There is a difference between having one buyer and a lot of sellers versus having a lot of buyers and one seller. You can see the power here depends on number of buyers and sellers. Okay, that's very important to understand. So the market structure first is determined by number of buyers, number of sellers. If I'm going to the market, see if I have a lot of competitors in the market or not. If I'm selling, see how many people are buying from me the product. And vice versa. How much I want to understand is like I'm going to buy something in the market. I'm asking myself, is there many people want this product as I do? Or I am the only one buying the product? So if I'm the only one, I have a little bit of negotiation power. I can negotiate the price. So for example, when the company come up with drug, is one company come up with drug, they have buyers. So they have a little bit power of determining the price because you have less, nobody's competing with the same product. But when we have alternative and you have a substitute, we call them substitute, we will see that in the future, means the buyers, if they can negotiate the price versus you have one person selling one product and you cannot negotiate the price because you need it or you want it and there's no alternative. So when you decide this, you're just determining this negotiation strength. Who has the strength, the ability to set up the price? So the number of buyers and sellers determines who sets the price. Okay, the degree of concentrations among the buyers, and sellers. Is there like few companies controlling the market versus a lot of companies selling this identical product? Same things for buyers. Is there one buyer that's 100% concentration? Or we have a lot of buyers. So if I didn't sell it for you, I will sell it for somebody else. Also the degree of differentiations in and uniqueness of the product. If you are selling milk, you have Hood, you have other companies, the product is almost identical. Sometimes you have a product that are different. So Apple versus Samsung is not identical product. They are different. So each company trying to sell, it is very important for a company to show you that their product is unique and is different. You will see why is that important. If I can convince the consumers that my product is unique, I have some power to tell them, oh, like BMW says, okay, you have to pay extra money for my car because my car is unique. You pay extra money for iPhone because the company Apple tells you that my brand is very unique, is not the same. So I have some, you have to pay a little bit called extra money for that. There is a difference between starting a company that makes cars versus a company that makes milk. Sometimes it's not easy to start the company. You just get in, it's small capital, does not require a lot of money to start it, and sometimes requires a lot of money to start a business. So if I'm opening a store in the corner versus starting a car company, this may need a little bit of money, not a lot. This is capital intensive product. It means I have a lot of capital to start that. So that's very important. Is it easy to get in and get out of the market? So called barrier to entry. Okay, sometimes you have a barrier to entry means, is it easy to get in? If the price of some good goes up, is it easy to get up company and start? If you know that this business is making a lot of profit, is it easy to get in? And if you want to compete with, for example, Amazon, is it easy just to start a new business right away and just doing the same thing as Amazon? How long will it take you to do that? Okay, so that's called barrier to entry. So just going to, there are different ways you can look at barrier to entry. There's different hurdles you have to come up with or to jump to start business. Sometimes it is capital. So if you want to start a business that has capital intensive, you need a lot of money to start a business. That's a barrier. Not anybody can just go and start a car company or building airplanes. Sometimes this is law regulations. That's a barrier to entry. Sometimes the government says, okay, there is this regulations. You cannot just go and start new business. Like, for example, utility companies are really highly regulated. You cannot just go to a neighborhood and start utility company, because you have to dig, you have to get permissions from the government and stuff like that. You cannot just go by and, like, for example, for security reasons or like homeland security, you cannot let the company come from another country, for example, China, and start a business. It may take a lot of processes and regulations to overcome before you do that. Sometimes they will say no, because if you use our market, you might use our information, so to spy on our people. So regulations, technology. That could be another example. Technology could be, so you have technology, sometimes you have a software that is ahead of everybody. So imagine you want to start something that competes with Microsoft Office. You need a lot of engineers and know how to do it. So all this is called barrier to entry. Sometimes businesses are easy to do. You don't have to have a lot of capital. You don't need regulations. You don't need a lot of skills to do it. That's easy to do. Sometimes you have one of this makes it harder for you to start a business. So you have to understand this thing. That makes it very important to understand. So the market structure starts from perfect competition all the way to monopoly. Perfect competition, you have an unlimited number of buyers, unlimited number of sellers, and you have no barrier to entry, and the product is identical. So like you look at gold, it does not matter where you buy, the product is homogeneous a product. It doesn't know a brand or anything, it's a gold. Or oil, for example, it's called commodities, they are identical. Versus a monopoly where you have one company selling the product. It has really high barrier to entry, it's not easy to do, and unique. Most of the time you will have monopoly, could be like government services. Utilities are monopoly, because you find one company at every neighborhood, and the government, like say, it's better because we don't have a lot of companies digging holes in our neighborhood. We just give monopoly to one company. So most of the time when you go to a neighborhood, you will find one company delivering electricity and gas. Okay, so but in monopolistic competition, you have several number of firms, you have few barriers to entry, but you have a differentiated brands of products. So for example, small restaurants, so you say like you have Chinese food, you have Mexican food. It is a lot of restaurants in the same area, neighborhood, but the problem is that are not identical. You have 10 restaurants, but each restaurant cater to specific food and stuff like that. Oligopoly, we have few companies controlling the market, like big banks. That's an example. So when you define the market structure, why you do all this stuff, you want to see, do you have a power to set the price, or you have to what's called price takers? If you have a lot of people, whatever. So if I'm trying to sell gold, I'm not going to go and sell the price, set up my price. Whatever the goal in the price of gold in the market, that's my price. I'm not going to change it. Oil, if the goal is oil is $20 a barrel, if I want to sell it, I have to sell it for 20. If I want to buy it, I have no power over the price setting. Okay, we'll call them price takers. But if you are monopoly, or you have like a unique product, you have your only person like in the market, you can call it what is called price setting. I can say, so if I'm selling for a product that for like, let's say I come up with a new idea to cure disease, and I'm the only one person, I can just say, you want a drug, you pay this much. There's nobody else can, because my product is unique. Okay, so when you understand this structure, we understand the like competition, you understand how is it easy to get out of the market. You see how many people are competing with you. Is there like a substitute product for you? I can figure out, am I in this side of the chart, or I am in this side of the chart? If I am in the perfect competition, which is hard to compete, when you're the price setters, price takers, Walmart will kill you. Because Walmart can make it cheaper. You cannot compete with Walmart because Walmart sells a zillion number of units, and if they make a very small margin, it's enough for them. That's what makes like a lot of small shop owners suffering, because they are in perfect competition, and Walmart can bring the cost down by selling a lot of stuff. Because, and if you are here, most of companies are trying to at least be somewhere here. They will convince you that they have a little bit different product. They're, like car industry is a good example. It's buying BM is not the same as buying Toyota or buying Honda or buying GM. It is branded. iPhones is the same thing. Apple is trying to convince you that, yeah, we have a company that sells the same product, but our brand is unique. It's quality product and all that stuff. You are competing based on what you can offer to the consumers. So before we think about the price, you have to distinguish yourself. What part of the market are you? What part of the structure you are operating in? Okay?
Professor.
Yes.